Hi folks, I'm Doug at Dizzy Lizzie's, and this is a Hater 56 with one of the new Briggs and Stratton 850 PXI engines in it. Now the problem is the bottom of the engine, the sump, has broken, so it's causing the engine to rattle, and typically it's 3 years old, so it's all out of warranty, so I've got to replace the sump. Now they're about £120. Yes, £120 for the sump, which is absolutely ridiculous price. But anyway, let's start taking it apart to get the engine out. Now I've pre-loosened this panel here, and before I go much further, I've got to clean all that lot out. So I'll remove this cover and then I'll suck it out. I'll come back to you. Okay, so now I've cleaned all the muck out from there. What do I need to disconnect from the top up here? Just two things. The starter cord and the throttle linkage at the engine. Now I think that's a 5/16. 5/16. Just undo the clamp. It's on the side of the engine here. Bolt for the mushroom box. Yeah. This metal clamp here that holds the cable in, and then put it on slow so you get as much cable down here as possible, and then you just pull it off the mech that's on the side of the engine, remembering where it goes. Next thing is put it on its back, but also something to check before. See how much fuel's in there, because if it's a full tank and you tip it over and you start rolling it around, it's going to go everywhere. This has practically got nothing in it, so I won't bother doing it. One way of emptying it: take this cover off, pull the fuel tank up and drain it off onto the side, and then you can put it back in there. So it's one less thing to get worried about being spilt when you're doing the job. So right, let's put it on its back and I'll be back after that. Okay, so now I've put it on its back, I can get to the blade, and you can see already that that's wiggling around because of the engine not being strapped down. So blade and boss off. Little job, and then I'll take this piece off and I'll get back to you. Actually, there is something I forgot to disattach or disconnect from the handlebars: the blade brake cable. So that's simple, just an 11mm nut and a 10mm bolt. Take that off, release the cable, let it pull down, just so you can get some tension off of this to allow you to get it and disconnect it from the bar. So I'll do that, I'll be back in a second. Okay, so I've disconnected the blade brake cable. So what have I got to do here? Well, everything's got to come off the engine shaft so I can get the sump off. So first things first, these two bolts which hold the blade boss on. That was a bit tight. Don't forget the washers go in as well. So put these bits in my mushroom box. Next thing is that bolt there. If I remember correctly, it's a 20. Yeah, 22. Now the boss is loose. Next thing's this piece here, which holds the belt for the blade brake, and 14mm spanner at the back. That just comes off. Put that to one side. Then this comes off. And you're practically there. Next thing, the bolt for the engine is behind this. So one, two, three. And now you can get to the bolt here, and the bolt here, which is loose. I think that's a 13mm. Now, if you haven't got anybody to give you a hand, this is when it can become a bit of fun, because you've got to try and hold the engine in position, or get someone to hold it in position once you've undone these bolts. Now it's starting to go, so I'm going to tip the engine forward, the mower forward. Undo that bolt. Put the machine that way, so it's level and not sitting on top of my impact gun. That's it, engine's out. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this off, so I've got the whole of the workshop table here to work on. So I'll be back in a second. Now where's that remote control gone? Well, okay, the engine's out now. Now before I take it or do anything next, I just want to give it a quick clean. Not because I need to clean it. It's just when we're reducing contamination when replacing this sump. Because the engine's fairly clean, to be honest. But next you're going, well, what should I do next? Well, next thing is drain the engine oil. Now, on these engines, they've gone back to having a oil plug, which is handy. And it's the usual 3/8 drive, and I did undo it slightly to make it easier. And with my bench, it's a motorbike bench, so you can take the centre section out of here, and what's handy is I can jack the platform up to a certain height, put my oil bucket underneath of it, and then just put the engine over the top, let it drain into that, and I'm going to go off and make a cup of coffee or tea, and I'll be back in a while once it's drained. So after making me a cup of tea, I come back in here, I put the engine out of here, put the sump plug back in, and I thought I better drain the fuel out of here. There's only about 150 mils worth of fuel, but it's one thing less liquid to worry about. So anyway, I'm going to put this on the engine upside down and move the camera to a better place. So see you in a second. Right, I've given this a bit of a blow off, so there's not much, and there's no muck around here that can go into the engine. And you've got these bolts around the side, and they are 3/8 size imperial, because it's a Briggs and Stratton engine and it's an American, so they use imperial size nuts and bolts. So 1, 2, 3. Yeah, they're all the same size so far. Yeah, because some of them do have different length bolts in the past, but they're all the same size, so there's no need to worry about thinking which one goes into which hole. Right, the next thing I want to do is a little bit of lube around here on the shaft to help the bearing, the seal, go over the shaft. Yeah, that's time for another tube. And now, gently with a hammer, with a tap, and off it comes. And there we go. And you can see this is the part that's missing, where it would bolt onto. And also you can see across here, that's all cracked as well. So next thing I do is to remove all these gaskets around here and clean it up before replacing the new gasket and the new sump. So I'll do that and I'll be back to you. Okay, I've cleaned the gasket up as best I can. I've then, long nose pair of pliers and a bit of rag or paper, wiped all the inside of that out so there was no muck in it, and I've just dropped a little bit in it. But also, this gives you a chance to see, sorry, there's a mountain in there, bit of muck, what the governor is. Now if I turn the engine around, on here is the governor, and where your cable, the rods or whatever connect to your throttle is on this. And what happens is when the engine spins up, these fly out and push against that, and that is what controls your RPM. Also, when you're putting this back together again, you've got to make sure that's in the right place so it can do its job. So right, let's get on with putting the gaskets and everything on. Now, the cover does come with a brand new gasket. You just got to make sure it goes on the right way around, like that. Yeah, there's something sticky there. But anyway, what I'll do now is, on the bearing, you can see there's an oil seal there. And what I should do is I shall pump some oil over there, give it a little bit of a smear around, and that will help the sump go over, no sorry, the oil seal slide over. Now you've got to make sure it's lined up. There's a dowel here and a dowel here. It lines up with this piece here and this piece here. So you just push it down, trying to keep the dowels lined up. And now, with the hammer, just give it a little Make sure it's going down. If it isn't, right. Just take my oily gloves off. That wasn't in the right place. So, also, that lines up with that piece. That seems a bit better. And that's it now. So next thing is these bolts. Give them a quick couple of threads to start. And I'll just I'm not too sure what the torque setting is for these, but I shall go around with my 3/8 breaker bar and just feel how tight they are. And if they need a little bit more, I'll give it to them. But everything so far is reasonably tight. Right. Next thing, put it in the engine. But I have noticed one thing. That one there's threaded. Because these ones aren't. I suppose what it is, it's a case of these self-thread them or self-tap themselves into the hole. So, next thing to do, get the body in here and that to be put ready back onto the mower. Well, I've placed the engine on top of the deck and I found a problem. Let's move this out of the way. Now, all engines can be swapped technically between any deck because they're all bolted on by 3 bolts and there's a general 3 positions for all the machines, all the engines to fit on. Now, when you look at the bottom of the deck, they've actually got 4 places for them to bolt on. But what that one, extra one is, it's to support the engine. Now, when I put the engine on here, I found out the problem and probably the reason why the back bolt here broke. Because this engine doesn't sit flat because there's no support here to stop the engine from rocking. The 3 bolts, yeah, for a moment, maybe a couple of years, it'll hold it in position, but eventually that's going to crack again because the engine is able to sort of technically vibrate a bit because this side, as I said, is not supported. Now I'm going to have a think about this and see what I can do. Now, I'm not going to put washers underneath this side so it's secured because that means the engine will not be, the crankshaft will not be perpendicular, it won't be up there, it will be at a slight angle. So the blade won't be flat and cut properly. It's got to be bolted down at the back and the 2 here, there and at the front. So I've got to find a way of supporting it from underneath here. Yeah. Maybe I'll just have to find a bit of timber, but I'll have a think about it and come back. Now this is the unsupported area and you can see the only thing that's stopping it from going over further are these 2 cooling fins here. So I've got to find something that is thin enough to fit underneath there and help support this corner while after I've bolted the other 3 bits down. So what do you reckon? Bit of timber? Do you know something? I think I might have something for this. Now, my solution is packing pieces. When I was working with my father decades and decades ago as being a carpenter, we were doing jobs. Now, before it used to be wedges and stuff, and then someone come up with this great idea of plastic packing pieces, and they're all different sizes, so you can make up the correct thickness when you're fitting something. So I've had a go, and number 2 is the ideal size. So let's fit this under and see if the engine doesn't rock. Okay, now I've got my packing piece here, and I'm going to lift the engine up a little bit, rest it down, and now the engine doesn't rock. And so it means this corner here is now supported, and it should hopefully be a less chance of the bottom end sump breaking again. And if you noticed, there's a hole here, and that's where there could be a possible alternative point to attach it to, and there should be a lump there just to keep this from rocking. But because they haven't done that, there's a packing piece there that you need. Now, if you're wondering what this is, it's a ratchet strap that I put over the engine to hold it in position. I didn't ratchet it tight down so the engine couldn't move, because I still needed to move it to make sure that all these 3 bolts are lined up. Now, they aren't tapped, so you have to use these bolts here to wind in and out to actually cut the thread. It helps in some way of making it tight on the cut. I do suggest you make sure your impact gun is charged up and you wear these, because it's not a quick zip zip. It's, depending on your gun, it can take a little while to do it. So anyway, I'm going to take the strap off, and then I'm going to carry on putting all the accoutrements underneath here. Oh yeah, I forgot to mention, I didn't tighten these down totally. I wound them in, backed them off, and then I put the packing piece in here and then tightened it down fully, and that is very nicely held in position. Right, so first thing to go back on is this bar across here. Give it a few turns to get it started, because it's now worse than cross-threading stuff. Next thing is the drive belt. Put that on to the pulley down there. Then you've got this. Remember to line it up with the woodruff key at the back. Get in there. There we go. Then it's the big 22mm bolt there. Next is this. Don't forget the spring. So you easily put the spring on first, goes in the lug at the back here. Come on fingers, work. Right, that's that on there. The spring here attaches to the groove at the back here. Like that. Put the belt over, and then you've got to attach it onto this piece here, and bend it around because it's on that spring. Now, it doesn't matter if it's running a bit loose. Sorry, wrong washer. Not my fault. Doesn't have a washer there. 14mm span at the back. What's up with that? 14mm. Let's undo that. Thread looks okay. There we go. That still moves. Next thing, connect the blade brake, the spring cable, and to make sure it doesn't come off, give it a quick tug, and that's now tight and held in place. After that, you've then got the plate here, which is what these two washers are for. Then you've got the two 14mm nuts, the Loctite nylock nut ones. Just use the end of your finger to rotate them to get them started. Come on, yeah, you can. One of them was tight, but that's basically it now. All I've got to do is put the plastic on, then the blade belt, the disc. I've got to sharpen the blade up, and then it's a case of running the engine up and see if it leaks. But I'll get onto that in a second. Okay, last night I put the blade, the boss and this plastic cover on. I also filled the engine with oil up to the maximum level, to the correct level, and I left it overnight to see if it would leak, and so far there's no leak. Now the next thing to attach to the engine is the throttle cable. Now I've disconnected the cable unit, this bit. So it's zoomed in onto this, that's why you can't see it, to make it easier to feed it through the hole there. Now I've done that, I can reattach the throttle linkage or the throttle mech to the handle. I won't screw that up next. Now the next thing to do is you've got these bits, and they clamp on to the throttle. Now there's a lug at the top. You can't see that, hang on, move it around. Now there's a lug at the top that goes through that piece of metal there. Now quite often you can see where the cable was clamped previously, but you've always got to check it. Now I just got to wind this in. It's an 8mm, pardon me. And you've got to make sure this cable runs squarely through it, otherwise this will not clamp down. You could break this and it'd be one of them days. I'm just going to nip that up. And then check to see if it actually works. Yep, you can see it's fully moving. Right, the next thing to do is put some petrol in it. Take it outside and run it up. Now I've run the engine up so it gets up to temperature, and so far there's no leaks about it, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it for 24 hours, drop it back to the customer tomorrow, and it'll give it a chance to see if it leaks anymore. And the only way to actually find out if it's leaking is after he's used it. Yeah, so there's no leaks. And also, if you can see it, the plastic spacer that's now supporting the front of the engine. So there you are, folks. If you have a Briggs and Stratton 850 PXI engine with a broken sump, that's how to replace it, and also possibly solve the problem that caused it to crack. If it hasn't cracked yet, try and find a plastic spacer that's about 2-3mm at the most, and that will stop it hopefully from breaking in the future. If you found that helpful, please hit the like, and if you found it even more interesting and liked it even better, please hit the subscribe button. It's much appreciated, and I'll see you in the next video, folks. Take care, bye.